Hello YouTube, this is a high definition review of the Microsoft Xbox. This is the original Xbox. This is Microsoft's first video game system. This was their, basically, well, you can kind of say jump into the gaming world. This is the Xbox logo. A little bit different compared to the 360. As you can see, it's got more of a, well, the X is almost like a blade-like design, something you'd see in more like a ninja game or something like that. There's not much to talk about here, so I'll kind of move to the system. Now, this was the most powerful system of its time. It did feature high definition up to 720p. However, most people didn't use the high definition though because of the fact that, well, most people back then didn't have HD TVs. A lot of people still had just a regular TV, and even now there's still some people that don't. So I mean, it worked either way, just like the new systems will. And here's the CD drive in it. Now they did have one issue with these, and sometimes these disk drives would stick, or they would open up and tell you, the thing would tell you that it couldn't read the disk or something like that. They did have a few issues with that. For the most part, it was a pretty well built system. Really wasn't no major issues. Now, Microsoft's failure with the original Xbox was due to the fact it was reliability with their operating systems in the past, and people were kind of looking at that. And so, and being that there was their first system into the market, they already knew what the other systems were like. And so that's why they stuck with Sony. Now, Sony was kind of 50-50 gaming, where it was, casual hard gaming is 50-50. Where the Xbox was strictly hardcore, so casual gamers really did not see the Xbox. There was a few casual games, like it did have the Sim series. There was a few different series that it had, but it did have a few. But it was mostly hardcore. It does have, like you see here, obviously 4 controller ports. Now the controller ports on these are kind of big. They're a little bit bigger than a Nintendo 64 controller plug-in. And notice the controllers are wired, and they're a little bit different from the 360 controllers. For the most part, all the buttons are the same except for these down here. These are a little bit different. But they're shaped a little bit different. So, I mean, you can tell that there's definitely a different feel. I mean, I do know people that have them that does play DVDs as well as the PlayStation 2. The GameCube did not play DVDs though. However, Nintendo did release, it was Japanese only, but it was called the Panasonic Q, and they were working with Panasonic, so they came up with a system called the Panasonic Q, which was a GameCube and DVD player, which it didn't work out too well, and they did have issues with that. But anyway, this is the Xbox, so we'll keep on that. This was an excellent system for its time, but like I said, with Microsoft's history, it really hurt the Xbox, and that's why the sales were only at about 50 million, maybe a little over that. They were pretty well tied with Nintendo, with Nintendo's GameCube. So, I mean, yeah, they just topped Nintendo. However, one thing I want to mention, when you see those readouts, those don't include any systems that that failed, especially with like the 360, for instance. When you see those numbers, you really can't say those are accurate, because they might have sold that many systems, but I guarantee you there ain't that many systems running. With the 360, that number's probably about half. It's honestly, that number is probably about it. Same thing even with PlayStation 3. They had some issues with them too, with the 60 gig. So that number's not going to be as high either. And some people don't have them anymore. So them numbers are kind of unknown, and there's some systems that don't work at all. So Some systems are pretty much, you know, not even there. Now, this was before Blu-ray, you know, so it don't have Blu-ray or nothing like that. But it did, like I said, it did feature DVD. I had a remote that would plug in. You plug a little plug-in into the controller slot, and it had a sensor on it for, you know, DVD remote. Now I will say the DVD remote was kind of, I don't know, it really wasn't bulky, but it looked like an RCA remote kinda. If you look at RCA remotes back in that time, that's what it looked like. The styling of the remote was identical to an RCA remote. Now, one thing I want to point out on this, if you notice on this case, these look like vents. They're not. It's actually basically texture on your case. Now, one thing about the 360, the one thing about the Xbox is it was big. It was the biggest system, size-wise. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, compared to the GameCube, and even compared to the PlayStation 2, to the original PlayStation 2, the Xbox is almost double the size of the PlayStation 2, which really, you know, I will say it was a good system, but with that size issue, that hurt it too. It made it very hard to put the Xbox in small areas. You know, you could put like 4 GameCubes per one Xbox, and like 2 PlayStation 2s per Xbox. So, and then when they had the Slims, the PlayStation 2 Slims, it got even, you know, it made them look even worse, because the Slims, you could put probably 4 of them, or maybe even 5 of them, compared to one Xbox. So I mean, the Xbox unit was pretty big. The Halo series, you know, like, it did start on the original Xbox. They had Halo 1 and they had Halo 2, and they were the best-selling games for the Xbox. Now, the Xbox is pretty simple as for hookups. It's just basically component, composite, S-video, power. I think it has LAN. I think there's also a modem port, and then it has eject and power in the front for the buttons. So you know, for the most part, it's a pretty simple system. But also, at the same time, it was also the most complex system, because it featured a full integrated menu, and they had like the Xbox Live. People really didn't buy into the Xbox Live all that well, though, and one of the reasons why is because they wanted so much for it. They wanted a yearly membership. They wanted you to buy point cards, which is what's going on with the 360. You know, same thing, and it's really hurting the Xbox, because people do not want to pay that membership fee. You know, with PlayStation and Nintendo, you don't have to pay a membership to buy, you know, to buy the mini games, or, you know, games like Sonic 4, or you know, any downloadable games. You don't have to have a membership to download them, you know, to buy them and download them. Where with Microsoft and the Xbox and the Xbox 360, you do. Now the Xbox, the service had all been discontinued for the original Xbox, so unfortunately, you know, to continue using the service, you did have to upgrade to a 360. But anyway, that concludes our review of the Xbox.